Good afternoon. This is a special meeting. It is Tuesday, December 14th at 1 o'clock of the City Council, the Library and Observatory Board, the Housing Authority Board, and the City Council representing the Redevelopment Successor Agency. I would like you to join me in a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Christy, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Kite?
Here.
Councilmember Smotrich?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Townsend?
Here.
Mayor Weil?
Thank you. Yes, here. The process today, and I thank all of you for being here, this will be certainly an interesting meeting. And we will give everybody an opportunity to speak. And we will also give the council the opportunity to ask questions so that they are satisfied and you are satisfied. The order will be a very sophisticated method of calling you up. And here it is. There's nothing like technology. And so we will draw a name and they will go through the list. I will ask each of you to come up to the podium. I'll ask you a basic question. You will have 5 minutes to answer that question or any other comments that you desire. And when you're completed that, I will ask the council if they have any questions. I would ask both you and the council to be somewhat succinct and terse in your comments without rambling. And yet, on the other hand, I want you to have the opportunity to express yourself fully. That being said, we can commence our process. And the first name is Brad Anderson. I don't see Brad Anderson here. If Brad Anderson should arrive later, we will give him the opportunity.
Are you going to do public comment now or after?
Okay.
It's up to you. It doesn't matter.
I will say this, that while we're waiting, is there anyone here that would like to make a comment, a public comment, at this time regarding the special meeting? Isaiah, do you have anyone remotely?
We do have one speaker card, Mary Lou Suter.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, it's a pleasure to be here today and to see all these people interested in public service. Does my heart good. I hope it does yours as well. I'm here today as a resident of Rancho Mirage and also to support a friend of mine, a colleague, someone I've worked with on the Emergency Preparedness Commission for over 6 years, and that would be Marcia Stein. Marcia is an excellent choice for you if you choose to make that choice. She's extremely well educated. She's a retired educator, She's worked with people with disabilities. She's worked with young people who are in gangs. She's worked with people here in Rancho Mirage who live in HOAs, who live in ordinary neighborhoods, who live in mobile home parks. And she's encouraged all of us on the commission to do that as well. She's just a remarkable individual who cares so much about Rancho Mirage and loves the city just the way it is, together with In and Out and other improvements as they occur. So I would encourage you, with my whole heart, to select Marcia Stein for this position, and I believe she would do just a wonderful job expressing her views, her values, her opinions, and she would also listen to yours. And together, I think you would form another excellent city council in the absence of the great Dana Hobart. So thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I'm grateful.
Thank you very much. Christy, do you have any other?
We'll go ahead and announce for our remote audience that this is the public comment period, and those public comments should be limited to those items described on this agenda. If you're participating remotely, you would hit the raised hand button on Zoom or *9 on your telephone to make a public comment at this time. Christy, do we have any more speaker cards?
No, we do not.
Anyone here in the audience that didn't fill out a speaker card that wishes to speak? Yeah, come forward, please. Please state your name for the record before you make your comment.
Good afternoon. My name is Carol Mulvihill, and I am here representing the Colony Homeowners Association Board. The Colony Homeowners Association Board supports Mr. David Gray's candidacy to fill the vacancy on the Rancho Mirage City Council. Our association represents 218 owners who reside in the Colony Mobile Home Park. We found that Mr. Gray's 10 years of service on the Mobile Home Fair Practices Commission to be exemplary, and we would like to wholeheartedly support him. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming.
Anyone else that wishes to make a comment that didn't fill out a speaker card? Come on down.
Good evening, everyone. Ali Baba Farzana resides in Rancho Mirage. One reason that I'm in Rancho Mirage, Marcia Stein begged me to come to Rancho Mirage so we can vote for her. So, and known Marcia for exactly 38 years. This woman never stops. If there's 7 nights of a week, 4 of them is involved with the public works, different organization. Her efforts should be used at this moment. Ask the people to vote for her. I know we are not voting today, but all the people who hear my voice, Alibaba, call me, 760-851-9505, if you want to know anything about Marcia. I won't say about her cooking, but anything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else here in person that wishes to make a public comment? All right, we'll check our remote audience. And we have no one wishing on our remote audience to make a comment, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we will continue with our very sophisticated method. And the next name is Elizabeth Chavez. Elizabeth Chavez here. I do not see her. The next name is Shan Dornhecker.
Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate your consideration of my application. As a relatively new resident in Rancho Mirage and only a renter at this time, we much wanted to buy here, but we're really prevented from doing so because of the high cost of housing. In preparation for this meeting today, I took a look at our demographics from the 2020 census and the 2010 census. Here's what I'm seeing. We have a population growth rate of about 10%, yet we have a decline in housing and available affordable housing for that. While the city of Rancho Mirage likes to tout that our median income for our residents is $138,000, the reality is it's actually more closer to $78,000. We have about 7,000 people who commute to the area that work in the city of Rancho Mirage, either for the city or in businesses that are surrounding that. We could, in the future, if we start to rethink development in the city, develop housing that is affordable, keeps our residents here, contributes to our greater tax base, and over the long term in the future, saves on environmental costs and water resources. One of the other things that I've noticed about the city of Rancho Mirage is that we are a very diverse community, even though it's not reflected currently in our city council. I think one of the nice things that has happened is that we now have elections timed in November with the federal elections, which is a very good thing. And I would also like to see that we make the city council much more accessible to those of us who are working and who want to participate in our community on many levels. We also have a difficulty with the fact that the city council has spent $10 million with the Riverside County Sheriff, and yet our crime rate per capita per 1,000 people is 3.43. That means there's 3 crimes, property crimes, vandalism, anything, per every 1,000 residents. That's a lot. That's a very high per capita rate. I would like to see us using our funds to increase community policing, increase safety for all of our residents, especially our elder residents, of which is a growing population, but yet we still have a lot of youth that are coming to the area. We have a wonderful school system that also we need to start to encourage growth, entrepreneurship within that. If I am allowed to take the seat, I would work to help increase, reasonable environmental development that balances the needs of every one of our citizens, not just the few, the wealthy, and the country club set that overlooks many of the hardworking people who do help make this city run on a daily basis.
Thank you very much. Are there any council members that have a question? No. Thank you. We appreciate your participation, and we commend you for your activity and wish you the very best.
Thank you. I'd also like to state I do represent the growing population of veterans that are moving to the area as well, as I am a veteran, and I do see an increase in that population of younger veterans moving that would like to also purchase and live here.
Right. Next name is Robert Berkston.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and city staff. While I have not yet held an elected public position, I do come to you today with an extensive background in public service from my 20-plus years of residency in West Hollywood prior to our moving to Rancho Mirage this past summer, which includes I was appointed by City Council and served on the city's redevelopment agency for over 8 years, including terms as chair and vice chair. During that time, we approved residential rental projects including 591 market rate units, 204 very low income, 86 low income, and 3 moderate income, while only having to Ellis out 1 unit. We also worked to spur commercial redevelopment with 5 large-scale mixed-use developments that brought much-needed neighborhood-serving businesses, groceries, restaurants to the city, as well as upgrading and adding to public spaces and parks. After then Governor Brown dismantled all redevelopment agencies statewide, I was appointed to serve on the East Side Task Force and worked on commercial development, public safety, enhancement and additions to public parks and spaces, branding, and marketing. I was appointed and served for 8 years on the city's Rent Stabilization Commission, including terms as vice chair and chair. This commission enforces the city's rent stabilization ordinances and is a quasi-judicial body that is the trier of last resort for disputes between landlords and tenants prior to those disputes being taken to LA Superior Court. I brought forward through the commission and then to City Council a smoke-free housing ordinance protecting the health of our non-smoking residents from exposure to toxic secondhand smoke in their homes, and that was codified earlier this spring. I also worked on passing a routine inspection for all residential units ordinance. I was appointed to both the Disability Advisory Board and Human Services Commission, working to ensure full access and services for residents living with disabilities and with agencies the city contracts with to provide social services with an annual budget in excess of $5 million. I volunteered at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's West Hollywood Station for over 9 years, staffing the front desk, working with the public who came in the station for services, assisting sworn personnel, and training all new volunteers. I started and was the captain of a neighborhood watch for 19 years, which originally covered a 2-block area of the city, but ultimately covered 20 square blocks, which is about a third of the east side of West Hollywood. I work with the sheriffs, fire departments, and public safety on safety issues and as a liaison between residents and City Hall staff on issues including implementing a permanent parking district, code compliance, landlord-tenant issues, access to social services, and on potential development projects. Some of the major issues I see Rancho Mirage currently facing: to ensure those who are unhoused or at risk of being unhoused have the resources for housing, mental health, and addiction recovery to their benefit so their housing situations do not negatively impact our residents and businesses, as we have seen occur in far too many municipalities in Los Angeles and the state and Coachella Valley. Council has recently approved some projects that were considered controversial in nature by some residents, most notably the In-N-Out and Porcupine Ranch. While I have not had the opportunity to review the EIRs, if, and I hope it does not, if there are substantial negative impacts on the surrounding residences, businesses, and traffic, I would work to hold those developments accountable and work with staff to mitigate them to the greatest extent possible. I previously emailed council and staff my support of the ban on short-term residential rentals, but worked to vigorously enforce this ban to ensure our residential neighborhoods do not become de facto, unmanaged, unsupervised hotels. And finally, all indications are that we are in for a rough COVID winter, and I want to ensure that our most vulnerable residents have the resources they need to maintain their lives as we navigate this ongoing pandemic. I would work to ensure that development is balanced, bringing neighborhood-serving commercial opportunities, enhanced in new public spaces, and new housing, ensuring we are able to meet our RENA numbers. I would maintain regularly scheduled office hours where any constituent would feel free to meet with me in person to discuss any issues they are concerned or need assistance with. I would pledge to work on those issues promptly so that all residents would know that with me, they have an additional voice and advocate at City Hall responsive to their concerns and needs. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I will ask the council members if anyone has a question.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Richard.
Robert, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
I appreciate your input. Why do you want to be part of the Rancho Mirage City Council?
I love our new community, adopted community of Rancho Mirage. I love the people of the community. I love their friendliness. I love the businesses. How to explain? I was raised in a culture of civic service. My father and my grandfather were very active in Midland, Michigan, where I am from. So it's the culture of how I was raised, giving back to the community. As a small child, I asked my father, as a Jew, do we believe in heaven and hell? He said, no, but something kind of nebulous about the spirit. But he said to be a good Jew is to leave the world a better place than when you were in it before. And that has been the way I've lived my life as an adult, to make the community a better place. I'd like to continue that service here in Rancho Mirage.
What's your greatest strength?
I think compassion and dedication.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We thank you very much for your participation,
Thank you so much.
and we wish you the best. The next name is Robert Brown.
Good afternoon. Nice to see you. First, I'd like to start that I am not now and never have been a member of the Communist Party, so I want to make sure that that's on the record. And it's a pleasure to be here. And 25 years ago, when I was a commissioner in Cathedral City and Steve Keatoney at the time was a city attorney there, I was pondering a run for city council, and I found out that my wife was expecting a child. And I thought, why would I want to be a city councilman when I've got a baby? And so here we are, a quarter of a century later, and my daughter did an audition for the LA Opera today, and looks like she's going to be off and running on her career. And so now I think that would be an appropriate time to try to use some of the time that I have freed up now. And it's been a pleasure to serve Rancho Mirage in the past. The wonderful Marcia Stein back there sucked me into the Emergency Preparedness Commission a few years ago. And through that exercise, I've found a lot of fulfillment, and it's nice to make a difference to your neighbors and keep them safe. It's amazing how many people don't know how close we are. Someone described to me if Rancho Mirage and the Cathedral City area were a OBGYN patient, they would now be 10 months pregnant. And so it's a good thing to be prepared, and thanks to Marcia and Mary Lou Suter, who spoke earlier, and many people here in the city, I feel like we're in one of the safest positions here as far as emergency preparedness goes, and that's a great feeling. And as a resident of 16 years, I think now in Rancho Mirage, I've admired the fact that Rancho Mirage is steady and is financially conservative and welcoming to all, and very well run. I'm amazed when I read the paper sometimes in the morning what kind of hijinks are going on in other parts of the valley, and I'm just kind of glad to live here in Rancho Mirage. And I know we've got a lot of people to listen to, so I'll keep it short, and if it might entertain any questions, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Robert. Do any of the commissioners have council members have a question?
I have a question.
Richard.
Good to see you this afternoon.
Thanks.
Look forward to the future. Why are you the best candidate for the Rancho Mirage City Council?
Well, I think my experience as being an entertainer all these many 50 or more years now have given me an opportunity to run into a lot of different kinds of people. And in Rancho Mirage, where the average age is, the median age anyway, is 64 years old, I'm kind of right in there, maybe a couple of years past that, but I think that it is important to be able to, as a representative of the city, to listen to everybody and have an open mind and be able to interface with everybody. And I think that my long history in show business has given me an opportunity to make people feel comfortable and be able to elicit from people their true feelings and not feel uncomfortable talking to me or in whatever capacity I have. And I think that's probably one of my greatest strengths is communication. And it's been my pleasure to learn from many of the great communicators in the Valley. I remember Mousy Powell one time describing to me the old names of the city, the streets here in Rancho Mirage, and pointing out Parkview used to be 36th and this and that. And so I have a history here in the Valley, and I think that Rancho Mirage has got it right, and I'd like to just see it stay right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. Bob, you've been an incredible member of our commission on emergency preparedness. You've made the videos. You've hosted the and spoke as MC on our town hall forum. What would you do, or how do you see our city's future and changes you might want to make?
Well, I think because of the general nature of California politics writ large and the changing demographics of the Valley, I think that there is going to be perhaps an increased demand on services in the valley. I think that we've kind of dodged a bullet in one respect here in Rancho Mirage because of the nature of the city, of the demographics of the city. And of course, Rancho Mirage needs to be inclusive in welcoming new businesses, especially because we have to, I mean, we're lucky to have a lot of money in the bank right now, and it's thanks to you guys that we've stayed liquid. And I remember when we had the Valentine's Day flood a couple years ago, within a couple days, you folks had the Frank Sinatra Bridge open and running again, thanks to Brian and Kephart and some of those people. And other cities struggled and are still struggling. I remember being in Cathedral City since I got here in 1987, and they were talking about building a bridge over the Whitewater Canal then, and they still haven't got it finished. And although thankfully they're working on it, but I think that Rancho Mirage has the perspicacity to recognize problems before they become great problems and try to ameliorate that. We've had good city managers all the way through, and I think it's just a good system. And I think that the best thing for anyone sitting on the city council is to make sure that those systems stay in place and are lubricated by input from the public, but also leavened with good common sense from the city council and city managers.
Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The next name in our technology-driven choice is Marcia Stein.
Thank you, Isaiah. It's great to be here. Ted Weil, Mayor and City Council. I'm thrilled to be applying for this position, and I just think that my background is so diverse. I've lived here in the Valley since 1971, and I've been actively involved in many charities, many organizations. I volunteer pretty much full-time, and I love the city of Rancho Mirage. My husband and I moved here 23 years ago from Indian Wells, and before that I was in Palm Springs. And Rancho Mirage is really unique. I think it's an incredible place for all of us to live, and I'm honored to be part of this community. I think that my strengths would be in my leadership skills, my ability to bring people in. I agree about diverseness, and it is important. Not that I would add that much in terms of my own diversity, but I do think that we need to look at that as well. So I have been chairing the Commission for Rancho Mirage Emergency Preparedness for 7 years, and now I'm involved with Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network, CVDPN, where we educate the entire Coachella Valley. I continue to work in the schools and bring Hero and You Foundation books to the children and talk about being prepared. As Bob mentioned, we're almost 200 years overdue for a major event. So I would like to continue to do that for the city of Rancho Mirage and make it a real priority. I am concerned that some people don't get it yet and are not prepared, and obviously that's a concern of mine. Any questions?
Thank you, Marcia. Are there any questions?
Just one question, because you are so involved and have been in many areas in Rancho Mirage and all the other cities. What do you see as far as growth in our city, and in what directions should that growth be headed?
You are an incredible council. I am always impressed with the work that you do, how responsible you are, how fiscally responsible you are. We are the best city in the Coachella Valley in terms of your being responsive to the needs of the community and to be fiscally responsible. I would like to see that continue to grow. And again, making sure that we keep our values in mind. I'm fiscally responsible, and you are as well. And I think bringing in businesses that promote our values are important. I'm looking forward to things that are happening at the river, finally, and continue to want other businesses to come in here. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Yes,
Richard.
Marcia, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
If you could change one thing in the city of Rancho Mirage, what would it be and why?
Good question. I think, as I mentioned before, I think we do need to do a better job of reaching out to people who are struggling in our community. We've done fairly well with this homeless situation, which I know is prevalent, certainly more so in Palm Springs than Cedar City, but we have those issues to deal with. So I'd like to see that we continue to work with people that are not as comfortable as we are and need to find a place that works for them in Rancho Mirage.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Marcia. Nathan, and I think it's Shakro. And I might apologize, Nathan, if I have murdered your last name.
No, it's pretty close. Jacru.
Almost.
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 It's a tough one, I get it.
Exactly.
Council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I've been a proud resident of Rancho Mirage for 10 years now. My partner and I decided to move to Rancho Mirage specifically because the central location in the Coachella Valley, the underground power lines, and the exceptional cultural and recreational activities that this city council has brought to our city. Before we talk about how I got here today, I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory on what made me decide to apply. So I've spent the first 16 years of my career serving the public sector as a marketing executive. I've worn a lot of hats in that role, from understanding project management, strategy, planning, budget management, and I feel that my capabilities uniquely complement the city council and would bring a unique new perspective to the city of Rancho Mirage. I work for some of the largest agencies in the world, and as a result of that, some of the top brands in the country. The pandemic has changed life for all of us, and that has also allowed me the opportunity to move full-time and relocate to Rancho Mirage. As part of that decision, I looked at what I wanted to spend the second half of my career doing, and that involves participating in the public sector, more specifically giving back to this city that I love so much. That said, about a year ago, I began joining our city council meetings, however, remotely on Zoom, and I feel like I'm up to date with the issues that are facing our city. You asked for my vision in the application of what I'd bring to the city of Rancho Mirage, and many of those issues mirror what other applicants have spoken about today: short-term rentals, continued economic development of the city, and also the housing shortage. However, there's one other issue that I am extremely interested in that is only controlled by the city council, which is the Rancho Mirage Energy Authority. And there's my interest there is twofold. First of which, taking an active role in combating the climate crisis that not only affects our city, but all cities, and also continuing to reduce the electricity bills for the residents and businesses of the city of Rancho Mirage. Because we have a short time limit, I'm not going to go into some of the items that I propose to bring to the city. That's in the application for you to review. And additionally, I feel that my background in marketing and advertising is something that we can use as life returns to some form of normal, and that we can bring additional visitors and tourism back to the city and bolstering those efforts to continue our economic growth and development. So why me? My background is full of deductive reasoning, strategic problem solving, and I have a history of fiscally conservative budget management. It would be my honor and privilege to serve on the Rancho Mirage City Council. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. That's a good background. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question.
All right, Iris.
You have served in several organizations through the years, and you do lecturing and are familiar with marketing, and you have decided to run for council in November. And I wanted to find out, you mentioned you'd like to change RMEA, which is our energy program, and you want to combat climate crisis. How would you go about that?
Yeah, to clarify, I decided in November to run for the general election next year. So that's something that was on my radar already, a decision that I made. However, the seat vacated by Dana Hobart presented a unique opportunity that brought us here to today. My interest in the Rancho Mirage Energy Authority and combating climate crisis, to me, that's something that we all need to take an active role in and participate. There's quite a few different initiatives that we should explore as a city council that can reduce our city's resident and businesses' carbon footprint by making responsible green energy choices. Some of those items that I propose that we'd be exploring is additional options with the rate structure that could include closer to home green energy, power generation, solar, wind farms, storage. Those can be city-owned resources. I'm extremely proud that the City Council made the decision to create the Rancho Mirage Energy Authority, and I'm about taking it to the next level and exploring how our city can make that an even stronger program for our residents.
Okay, but you have nothing specific that you can identify?
To do with Rancho Mirage Energy Authority? I do. So first option would be diminishing the rate plans resistant on distant and brown energy. That's currently part of the sourcing issue with the current rate plans offered by the Rancho Mirage Energy Authority. We could explore the construction of city-owned and operated solar, wind, and storage technologies that could offset our residents' current peak time of use rates. We could also explore a shared solar program that would allow residents with an HOA or that live in multi-tenant buildings that do not allow you to have solar on your homes to purchase remote solar that would be located in our city to offset those rates and participate in that green energy program that was just offered by LADWP for residents in multifamily units and in HOAs that did not allow solar panels. I'd also build upon our existing residential solar rebate program. We currently only offer a $500 supplemental rebate for residents that are installing solar. I would propose we'd explore expanding that to the businesses of Rancho Mirage, as well as additional incentives for residents that are choosing to install storage, battery devices inside of their home. That could also include residents that upgrade their HVAC to higher SEER units, that is more efficient units that would use less energy. That's preparing us for the future. And additionally, and finally, a fair one-to-one compensation program for residents that currently do have solar that would allow us to offer net metering rates that more fairly compensate people who over-generate, giving back clean energy to our community. All of those are things I would promise to explore if elected to City Council.
Okay, thank you.
Nathan, I do have a question. Hi, welcome. Are you still fully employed now?
That's correct. I still am fully employed.
Is this with an agency?
I am with Accenture. That's correct.
Very good.
Technically, they'd consider themselves a consultancy. They don't like the agency word.
I got you. Let me ask you a leading question. In the last 2 years, the decisions that were made by this council on issues that came before this council and we voted on, anything that you would have done differently or voted different that we voted for?
Wow, that is a great question. I think the one issue that I potentially would have explored slightly differently would be the recent decision on short-term rentals. So in looking at that issue, I feel the current council did hear a lot of different opinions on the issue. I do feel that not all the voices of our community potentially were heard in that decision. Specifically looking at communities that may have already had experience with the issue or had rules of their HOA. Most of our communities have an HOA that had those rules already established. I think more fairly evaluating what was happening within those HOAs, were the rules being followed, how many issues were resulting from it, would have more fairly listened to the voice of all of our residents It is also fair to say that not all residents live inside of an HOA. There are several communities that do not have them. I think that is an interesting place where the City Council could have stepped in and carved out specific rules and regulations where they were not able to be enforced by an HOA.
Very good. Just to clarify, I'm sure you're aware that this council and this city looked into the short-term rentals, not overnight, but several years of massaging it and changing it to come to the point where we are today, just so you know. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Question before you get out of here.
Of course.
Why do you want to be part of the Rancho Mirage City Council?
I'm ready to give back. I really love this city. I'm so happy to live here, and I would be very honored to take the amazing work that the City Council has done in the past and carry that torch forward. It's going to be a little bit of learning for me. It is a new transition, but I am very confident that my background, my experience would make me an asset to the city and establish a long path forward and the next chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next applicant is David Gray.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mayor Weil, Mayor Pro Tem Townsend, Council Members Kite and Smotrich. I'm really pleased to be here today. I have a much easier time of it than the four of you do. I'm applying for a job to try and, which would put me in the position, if you were to award it to me at this time, of trying to make the decisions such as the one you are confronted with. And I think it's a tough one. There's a great number of excellent applicants here. I like to think of myself as among those. I think my application, which I'm sure you've all had the opportunity to read, sort of sets forth my qualifications. I've been an attorney for 40 years. I've been of service to the city of Rancho Mirage, officially as a commissioner in various capacities since 2011. I have been a permanent resident here for 17 years, and I love this city. And I've done everything I can to make it a better place, not a worse place. And I was going to say a bunch of other things. Ultimately, I mean, I think many of you have had the opportunity to work with me or to observe me working in the capacity seat, and I think you know my capabilities. But the thing that blew me away today, I'm going to get really personal here. I had a life-threatening situation about a year ago where I underwent a surgery where there was a chance I wasn't going to survive. And, you know, it makes you think, right? Fortunately, I did come through well, and I'm doing well, and that problem is behind me. But, you know, before I went under for the anesthesia, it was the first surgery I'd ever had. I thought to myself, if this is it, if this is really it, what was my life? Was it a life worth living? Did I make the world a better place than it was when I came into it in any way? And the answer is not an unrequited, it's not a complete yes, of course. You know, I've had my problems like everybody else. But as I thought about it, as I faded off, I thought, okay, you know, I don't know if there's a beyond. I don't know if there's anything else, but, you know, I feel pretty good if this is it. And, you know, happily enough, I woke up and had a chance to relate that introspection to you. So, and the reason I tell that story right now is because the thing that blew me away today personally was the support of the Colony Mobile Home Association that I have not talked to since I helped with the hearings, that I had no idea were going to present an endorsement to me, that brought a tear to my eye, because the reason I became a lawyer, the reason I became of service, was because I like to help people. You know, and the difficulty of your job, like now, you're gonna, in a sense, help one person, although arguably you might help everybody else who doesn't get appointed more than the one who does. And the other people that aren't appointed are going to be disappointed to some. God, that was an unintentional pun, but are going to be somewhat disappointed. And with every decision you make, you have to weigh the pros and cons and what's good for everybody. And that's something I've had to do all my life. A lot of times I've represented bad guys, not good guys. And when you represent these people, you have to present them with a range of options that's the best under the circumstance. And given the world we live in today, it's not always, let's pick the best of all the good possible choices. Sometimes we have to pick the least worst one. And to know that I've been able to do that and to garner support from some people that I really didn't know, that's what makes me feel good, seeing the results of what I did. And I'd like to do that on the City Council for the City of Rancho Mirage.
Well, thank you, David. You have made some wonderful contributions on the commissions that you've been on. I will say this, that when you say we're going to be helping one person by selecting them to be on the council, I view it as we're going to be helping the city of Rancho Mirage to perpetuate what we feel is a level of excellence. And that's our obligation, and that's essentially what we've been entrusted to do, is to pick that individual that's going to perpetuate that excellence. That being said, are there any other questions?
I do have one, David. Glad that you pulled through with your operation, and I'm happy for that. But I do want you to give me the name of the doctor, just in case.
He was a cardiac surgeon,
There you go.
Just in case, I'll let you know outside. I can't do a public endorsement.
Good. All kidding aside, what did you specialize in as an attorney?
Well, I'm still working. Hopefully not for too much longer, but I am still working. Primarily business litigation. But and as I put this in my application, I started off with a big firm. I was recruited out of law school in Washington, D.C. to go to work for Rutan & Tucker, which was at that time the largest native Orange County law firm. And I worked for them for a little while. And then I branched out. I was a little more entrepreneurial, and I was a partner in another firm. But because of what I did, and because of my in-house counsel work in the commodities and securities industry, that's where I said bad guys, okay, I've done some really weird and interesting stuff. I ended up running an oil and gas exploration company because the guys who had raised the money to build it had no idea how to run it. And so I saved them and ultimately sold it so that all of the investors were able, if they exercised the warrants and such that I negotiated for them, would have gotten all their money back, which was a rarity in those days. I represented a guy who was like an amateur Nazi hunter. And because I represented him, we went and we collected a bunch of World War II memorabilia from some neo-Nazis in Orange County, and we foreclosed on all their stuff and got possession of it. And I found out, interestingly enough, being Jewish faith myself, that many of the biggest collectors of those memorabilia are actually fellow members of the Jewish religion, because they want to preserve those things, not to venerate them as unfortunately neo-Nazis do, but to preserve them so that we never forget. So anyway, I've done all sorts of stuff, but basically I've represented people in disputes.
Very good. Thank you, David.
Are there any other questions?
David, I have a question for you. You recently were appointed to the Planning Commission. You've been on the Rancho Mirage Planning Commission, I guess, for a few months now. Applying for the job as councilman, how do you view the two different positions?
That's a good question. I thought I was going to go somewhere else a little bit, but let me add, I don't know if I should say this, but I think this is the third time I've applied for an open council position. And I am very happy, and thanks to Dana Hobart for everything he did. He was really a visionary for the city. It's the first one where somebody left voluntarily. The last two were unfortunate because people died in office. I'm still just learning the Planning Commission, and I would have never applied or frankly run if the position hadn't come open the way it did. I see the Planning Commission as sort of a junior council. They're dealing with a much smaller subset, a subset of what the council has to consider, and providing analysis and advice to the council on the issues that come before the Planning Commission. And one of the things that I put in my application is one of my grave concerns, whether I remain, hopefully, on the Planning Commission if I'm not appointed, or become appointed to the City Council, is some recent legislation in California which I think threatens single-family resident zoning throughout the state in general, and particularly in Rancho Mirage. And I think I've actually talked with Isaiah about this before, and I've talked about it with the head of the planning department. And I think this is something that we're going to need to turn our attention to, not just Rancho Mirage, but in connection with a bunch of other cities, to make sure that we don't destroy single-family neighborhoods, which I'm concerned might happen. And again, this is another issue where you have to weigh that against the need for more and affordable housing everywhere in California and in Rancho Mirage. So did I answer your question in there somewhere?
No.
No.
That's okay, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. So please, I thought I might not. I get going.
No, that's okay. I was just looking for some comparison between Planning Commission and City Council.
And I don't really know, because I haven't been on the council, I don't know, other than to say I think the council deals with a much smaller subset of all of the things that you have to deal with on the council.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I did it. And I'm glad you mentioned about the Senate Bill 8, 9, and 10, because you state that you're very concerned about that. And this is something that was passed in Sacramento, and that would have a potential to eliminate single-family housing. So, in a city like ours and like other cities, how do you work with that? How do you combat that? How do you move forward with providing, the best of the best, but still stay within the guidelines of what has been proposed?
I don't think that legislation was adequately thought through. And I think Rancho Mirage needs to band together with other communities, some in the Coachella Valley, but it should also be outside the Coachella Valley. Particularly if you think of a planned community, one of the early ones in California, or one of the most planned ones, is Irvine. So I would hope that our council could work through the organizations of council members throughout the state, band together and try and fix this legislation. I'm really concerned about it. But it's not anything we're just going to be able to fix here. It's been imposed upon us, and now we have to work to make it, I think we have to work to change it, because I don't know if we'll be able to live with it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Next person is Eddie McLaughlin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to our Honorable Mayor and City Council. My name is Dr. Eddie McLaughlin. I'm a psychologist with one of our local school districts. And I just came today to share a little bit about my love for the city that I live in. I am the product of immigrant parents from Cuba and from Jamaica. I lived full-time in the United States since I had been in the 5th grade. And I started my life in the Los Angeles County area. I went to UCLA and local schools there, where I received my undergrad. I have 2 master's degrees, and I also have my doctorate in education. I've dedicated my life to service. I've been in the mission field in African nations, in Zimbabwe, and also in Botswana. And I also served after the devastating earthquake in Haiti and worked in different Caribbean nations as well. In the greater Los Angeles area, before I moved to this wonderful city, I also worked with homelessness. And so in my application, I put down 3 areas that I felt that were relevant and important to me and to my neighbors. One area is youth. My children attended Palm Valley School for 8 years, and there I worked collaboratively with the head of school to implement strategies for positive behaviors in schools. When students were struggling, I am also a large proponent of mental health and self-health care. I have been a former school board member, and I was a former small business owner in Los Angeles where I had 2 offices, one in the San Fernando Valley and also in the city of Torrance. And right now I have a small office that I do private consultation as well. One thing I feel, since there are many young families, and this is one of the reasons why we particularly decided to move into the neighborhood that we moved to, is because there are a lot of young families in my neighborhood. My children have built wonderful relationships. My neighbors have become family to us, and I would like to propose fostering more positive programs that impact education and youth. We utilize the library. Our library observatory is amazing. It's second to none, and I appreciate that service for our city. I mentioned briefly about homelessness. That is something that is close to my heart. I think that there's a stigma of being poor and poverty, and it breaks my heart that there are people that are struggling in our city, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. And I would like to strategize ways and how we can bring this more into the forefront, because I think it's something that we need to discuss as a council. I also feel my third issue would be public safety and collaborating with the local law enforcement for better understanding and more community awareness of our public officers. I feel that our public servants, police officers and firefighters, work tirelessly and support us, and we should stand with them and lift them up in any way that we can. I also wanted to mention that I feel like our city is moving in the right direction. I have never served on a city council. However, I've been in many different committees, and like I said, my past has been working as a school board member. So my life has been dedicated to education, and I feel like I could bring a different perspective to the council as far as those 3 areas: working with mental health awareness for our homeless, the youth services, and for public safety, collaborating with our officers.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of the council?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Because you talk about, I mean, you have an incredible background, needless to say, but you talk about self-health care and positive programs, building upon existing services and a better connection and collaboration with law enforcement. Do you have anything specific that you can identify as where we can improve or where you would improve things?
Well, I really enjoy, for example, our park, right, our city park, where we have an amphitheater there, and to have probably like a city festival that families come out with their, their furry friends and meet each other and build a sense of community. Because I think what happened, and what I've been seeing as a psychologist, is that during our pandemic, people were more insular, and right now there is a crisis with trauma and mental health. People are struggling and just need to have a human connection, a human touch, because we weren't able to do that for so long. And so I feel like our city could build ways to bring communities together. Where I live in the northern part of our city is seems like sometimes we are a little bit separated from other parts of the city, and a lot of gated communities are here, and so it would be great to have us come together. That is one thing. As far as the law enforcement, The church that I grew up in and the church that I attend right now in Palm Desert, I never grew up with fearful of police officers. They attended my church regularly in uniforms. Sometimes after working all night, they would just come on in. And so I've always felt that they are our unsung heroes, and that building community, letting the police officers know that we care for them, that we respect them, that we need them, as well as the firefighters. I think those are very important things. And so just having them visible and coming into the different communities so that the children can see them and know that they are a part of their community and they're there to serve them as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Doctor, thank you very much for coming today.
Question, if you were given $1 million and it was for the use in our city, how would you use that money and why?
One thing is close to my heart is youth, sports, and involvement. I know that some of our surrounding cities, they have different soccer leagues and sports leagues, but to have things locally within our city can also build a sense of pride amongst the children, to let them know that I live in Rancho Mirage and this is what my city has given us. So I would use that $1 million because my heart and my life has always been focusing on building relationships with children and helping them to feel self-worth, helping them to feel that they can be comfortable in the school setting. And so that has matriculated out into my other areas of my life. But I would use that $1 million to just really have sports and more interactive activities. And I mentioned the park again, something like that, like a fair, something that they can look forward to on a small scale, but something of that nature.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and happy holidays to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Downs.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's appropriate to begin by reflecting on why we're all here today. We're here because a lion of the city of Rancho Mirage has decided that his time in public service has come to an end. And whoever is appointed to serve out the balance of his term will stand in the shadow of a giant. So thank you to Dana Hobart for his many years of dedicated, heartfelt, and exemplary service to this city. So I think an important question is motivation. Why does someone want to fill this role? In my case, my wife Jerry and I, we've operated a residential real estate agency in this city for the past 20 years. We employ about a dozen people, and we do business with 70 to 100 or more buyers and sellers of Rancho Mirage homes each year. Now, when we came here 20 years ago, we knew that this is the place we wanted to live, and we knew this is the place we wanted to build a business. But we knew virtually no one in this city. Now, 20 years later, we know a lot of people in this city. We have a large client base. We have a large social circle. Our children have followed us here and now live close by. Our roots run deep in this city. And so the reason for me, my motivation is because this city has been so good to me and my family. I feel an obligation to give back to a place that has given so much to me. I have a real sense of civic pride and civic duty in the city of Rancho Mirage. Community service is the rent that we pay for the room that we take on this earth. Muhammad Ali said that, and I subscribe to it. I want to serve because I want to pay my rent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Steve. Are there questions?
Yeah, Steve, how would you feel, seeing you have such a big real estate company, how are you going to manage this if you get elected?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you, Charlie. It is the case that Jerry and I are winding down a portion of our business. So a fair portion of the business that we do we are in the process of selling to one of the agents that works for us. And so we will continue to be involved in residential real estate activity in the city, but on a significantly smaller scale. It's also the case that, as you all know, I've served as president of the Rancho Mirage Country Club Homeowners Association for the last 6 years. Thank you again for all of your support as we work through our issues that you all know a lot about. It is the case that we have an election coming up in February for directors. My seat on the board is up for re-election. I will not be running for re-election to the board at Rancho Mirage Country Club. And so for those reasons, Charlie, thank you for that question. I do think that, I think I'll have the time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dick.
Richard?
Steve, it's been great watching you on the Planning Commission over the period of time you've been there. You really put your soul into these decisions that are made. In looking at the position of City Council as compared to Planning Commission, can you give us a little feel as to how you look at these two positions and why at this time you're willing to step down on the Planning Commission and move into the role of City Councilman?
Sure. David Gray made a comment earlier about the Planning Commission is something of a smaller version of City Council because we do see the issues, the development issues that are eventually going to come to you. It's certainly the case that we have the ability to approve a number of issues that come to us, but the large issues, we are a recommending group, and we recommend to you what we think the appropriate action is to take on a given issue. And so I guess one way to answer that, Richard, is to suggest that my motivation is to be of service to this city. I want to do that. And service on council would give me an even larger role and a larger feeling of service to this city. So I don't know if that is the right answer for your question, but that's how I feel about it.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here, Steve. And as you mentioned, you did play a key role in the ongoing saga of the Rancho Mirage Country Club. But your role as a realtor is very profound, especially all the work and the connections you've made with all the different homeowner associations here. So when it comes to growth of Rancho Mirage, what direction would your vision be, and what kind of businesses are we missing, if any, and how would you go about bringing in more growth?
Good question. So I think an important issue about growth is metered growth, and growth that works for all of the constituents. So we're going to grow. We have to grow in the right way. We have to grow in a way that works for the city, in a way that works for the development community, and in a way that works for the people. And we have to listen to what the people have to say about every issue that comes before us, as we did with some of the contentious issues that came before Commission over the last several years. So I guess I don't have a specific answer as to exactly what sort of businesses that we would want to attract. What I do know is that whatever business we attract, we need to make sure that, as I said a moment ago, we need to examine the way in which growth in this city works for the city, works for the developers, and works for the people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Continued good work on the Planning Commission. Jason Agostini.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to be up here and speak. I've been a longtime resident of the Valley and also a longtime resident of Rancho Mirage going back 16 years. I first moved to Rancho Mirage, and it was like no other city I've ever lived in. It was a sense of community. My community, my neighborhood was welcoming. We had, it was like a brand new family of neighbors. So that really speaks to the leadership of the council and what they've done to the city, the growth that I've seen over the last 16 years with new restaurants, a beautiful new park, when I was a high schooler, I went to Palm Desert High School. I played at what we called Whitewater Park basketball years, day after day after day. And that park didn't look anything like it does today. So hats off to the renovation and what you guys do and what you offer to our citizens here. It's really special. I myself have 2 children, and it's enjoyable to see them and have them and be able to raise them in a nice community, a safe community that offers a future to them. So I applaud you all. My background, I've been in residential lending for almost going back to 98, so 23 years. So in that background, it's taught me to analyze individuals' credit history, analyze risk, come up with creative ways to get people financing that otherwise wouldn't be able to. I've really, over the years, have specialized in helping homeowners get into homes that weren't able to get traditional financing through different means. But I have a creative mind to really, I listen to what they need, so I come up with a solution. I feel like there's always a solution. Not always is it the solution they want, but I look for solutions in people's requests to me. So I really take the time to listen. I feel like every time I have a client I work with or someone approaches me, I feel like they're the only one I'm listening to, and they really open up. So I really look for a solution to work together. I'm very active throughout the community, coaching youth programs, youth sports programs, active in both real estate associations in Palm Springs and Palm Desert. I've been a chair. I've chaired different leaders events for the Palm Springs Board of Realtors. Throughout this most recent pandemic year, we've been very successful in hosting fundraiser events. We've raised money for a variety of the Children of the Desert, a well in the desert. We did food drives. So very active community member, and I just look to continue that support in a city that has given me so much and my family. So I want to give back to the city and be and help and bring my resources and my skills to the city and a city council.
Well, Jason, I know you've been extremely active in the community. I'm familiar with some of your activities. I know what a dedicated parent you are and how active you have been. So in addition to that, you have served for a long time on a commission here for our city. So I thank you for that. Are there any other questions that one of my colleagues might have?
I have one question. Since you are so active with the youth and our families are coming here more and more into Rancho Mirage, are there any special youth programs that you would like to pursue or have the city pursue?
Yeah, I think a number of the cities are missing recreational programs that when I was young, we had city basketball programs and baseball programs, and they competed against different cities. So expanding that program out, one thing I know recently, there's some additional funding for new parks coming. So expanding the parks and recreations is really probably the most beneficial. That will help really promote that growth within the youth, giving them more opportunity, because there's very limited space throughout the valley for field space, for baseball, for soccer, for all these sports. As our valley grows, it's very limited. So it's very challenging. So looking for different ways to develop that in the youth and keep them active, because they're the future. And if we don't keep them busy and if we don't keep them out of trouble and guide them in the right direction, I think it'll be a trouble, especially as we come out of the pandemic with some of the mental health issues that we're seeing. So certainly creating more opportunity and having more parks available.
Okay, thank you.
Richard? Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Team player, I read right through you. It looks like you belong and direct a lot of things. Being a team player in the city of Rancho Mirage is really very important. Been on the council for 20 years now, and the one thing that makes this council run smoothly is that our ability to deal with each other and make those decisions that are for the best of the city. And I think as long as you can address your issues with your sports or other activities and put in 100%, you will be on the same par as Rancho Mirage City Council. Glad you could be here today, and look forward in the future with working you with other events. And just to remember that it's a team issue, and Rancho Mirage is the best team in the Valley.
I completely agree, and I appreciate the support. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jason, very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
David Hammer.
Good afternoon. I just have a little knee problem today, but I'll get up here. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about my opportunity to be appointed to the City Council. You know, I'm amazed at how many people here today are applying for this position. I'm from a small town initially in Weaverville, Trinity County, which is a population of 13,000 in the county. And we would never get this many applicants for county supervisor, I'll guarantee you that. And I'm also very pleased, though, to see that everybody has spoken about the same motivation, and that is public service. Public service has been a big part of all my life, both in my legal career and my private life. My most rewarding experiences in life have been serving others. You know, I wrote some notes here. A second. I didn't really prepare any speech. I was listening to some of the questions that you've been asking and some of the responses. And, you know, there's, besides the motivation of public service, that I think I want to be on the commission, or excuse me, on the council, because I see Rancho Mirage as being unique. And as the mayor said, we want to preserve this level of excellence. And I think I have the education, knowledge, and experience to provide to this team services to provide this excellent service continuing. Obviously, with my law degree, with 6 years as county council for Trinity County, 20 years total experience as attorney for various public agencies, then I've had the experience to do this. I was the attorney for the Planning Commission for Trinity County, the attorney for the Board of Supervisors, attorney for the Fire District, attorney for various other agencies within the county. Some of that, including the Fire District, was pro bono. I was an attorney for 14 years now, I guess, total, representing Child Protective Services in Trinity County and Riverside County. That was, of course, serving youth. And I agree with some of our speakers today that the youth, of course, are our future, and we must obviously do everything we can to protect the vulnerable and to encourage those students and youth who need guidance and need the sports. Councilmember Kite asked, if we had $1 million, what would you do with it for the city? And I was thinking, I said, what would be my answer to that? I don't really have an answer because I have not gone through the city budget. It appears to me you'd have to go through an analysis of the city budget, what's been spent last year, what's been budgeted for this year, what are the needs of each department. We know there's these 4 areas that the mayor has talked about before that are critical to our economy and to the city. One of it is law enforcement and public safety. And we know that that's a big portion, a huge portion of our budget right now. And it's a big challenge, continuing challenge. I think one way to address that challenge is to, extent possible, modernize law enforcement. In the city of Richmond, they're using a system that detects gunshots from a block away, and it automatically sends immediate response to that location. And they did that in Richmond, which at one point in time was one of the highest crime areas and the highest homicide areas in the United States. Apparently, they've reduced the homicides by a huge amount just by using this new technology. The other area, of course, is homelessness. We've talked about that. There isn't any magic trick to this to fix it. I think we have to work with the California League of Cities, work with our neighbors, and work together to address this issue. The city of Berkeley, a couple of years ago, put in a huge plan for progressive homes for the homeless. And they sent into the homeless camps social workers from the city to interview them to see, number one, how long they've been there, where'd they come from, what are their needs, how can we address your needs? And I don't know whether it's been done here or not, but that may be one way to address how to approach the problem. I think the Parks and Recreation in the city are excellent. Of course, the city planning is excellent because we can see the result when we drive down the streets and see the landscaping, the lighting, the well-maintained streets and roads, the planning. Even in the summertime, when there's no traffic, it's beautiful. In the wintertime, when we have more traffic, it still isn't like LA area or San Francisco where you have to wait for 5 to 10 minutes at a signal. So besides my education and experience, I think another reason I wanted to be on the city council because I am a team member. I worked on many teams like this before, and I enjoy working with a team that has obviously a successful record. Obviously, Isaiah is an excellent city manager. I've met him several times now, and I've seen what he's been doing. I've heard his presentations, and I know what the city's doing. I have not yet met Stephen, city attorney, but I expect that Stephen, based upon what I've seen, is doing a good job. Obviously, he had this issue of the short-term rentals. And Ted, pick up that fish bowl there you have in front of you. Pick up that bowl, please, for me. I had a former colleague who was a judge, and he was giving the swearing-in ceremonies every year for the new county supervisors. And he'd pick up a fish bowl like this, and he'd say, look at this fish bowl. I want to remind you that sometimes when you're sitting in the seat up there, that people get out of perspective. It seems sometimes they're bigger than life, and you're sitting in the fish bowl, and they have the fish bowl effect, he calls it. And I've seen that sometimes with county supervisors and with city council too, where people come in and they shout and they yell and so forth. I think that one of you mentioned this earlier, that I think it's Ted, was that the job, of course, is to sit back and listen. And if you can't listen and talk at the same time. And I think one of the most important things to be a successful council member is to learn to listen. Another reason why I'm applying for this job, one of the last reasons on my list here, is because my wife encouraged me. And you chuckle about it, but that's important too. If you don't have the support of your partner, then you shouldn't be doing the job. I'd like to also touch on the area of how we can address some of these, a big problem, that is the state taking over local control and taking away local control. I think the most effective method is by working with the California League of Cities. And I think we have to play an active role. I'm not sure how active we are right now, but I think we have to be leaders with the California League of Cities in initiating legislation and lobbying for local control. We know that local control is more effective than state control and federal control. I want to distinguish a little bit between the Planning Commission. I've got
David, I'd like you to kind of wind it up and then be available for some questions at this point.
I'd like to briefly comment on the difference between Planning Commission and City Council.
Sure.
The City Council is a legislative body. It enacts legislation, obviously, by city ordinances. The Planning Commission does not. The Planning Commission, to a large extent, is a commission that gives guidance to this body. The City Council also acts as an executive fashion in regards to management. And finally, in some cases, it acts as quasi-judicial. So there's a big difference between those functions. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
No, actually, you answered my question because it was regarding the League of Cities and how we would limit or decrease the state control. So you already answered that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And David, I know you're a very proud sponsor of the Rotary Club.
That's correct. I have my pin on. I'm currently president, as you know, of the Rancho Mirage Club, and I've been in Rotary for 46 years, and this is my third club of which I'm president.
Yeah, and I know you're very proud of that. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, David.
Thank you.
Richard? David, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your participation and your activities with the Rotary. It's a great asset for the city. So thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Robert Moon.
Honorable Mayor and City Council members, thank you for the opportunity, and City Manager and your staff. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this afternoon to talk about the possibility of the daunting task of filling the seat of our friend Dana Hobart. I don't think anybody can really fill his shoes, but it would certainly be an honor to finish out the last 11 months of his term on this council. When I watched that council meeting when Dana said he was leaving, he had tears in his eyes, and I really understood what he was going through. I was very fortunate. We moved here my husband and I have 40 years, moved here 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, so I could take a job in Diamond Bar as a technology executive. And we bought a house in Palm Springs because we came here and we saw the mountains and the desert and the air and everything, and we said we have to live here. And that end of Palm Springs was the closest to Diamond Bar. So we bought a house in Vista Los Palmas, and we lived in that house for 20 years. But I've actually retired 3 times. Doesn't stick. I've retired for the 3rd time last summer, and I find that I really, really like to be busy. And it was about 12 years ago when I retired from the corporate world, and I started volunteering, and I started noticing that a lot of the people I worked with on these boards, like at the Palm Springs Art Museum and at the Opera Guild, et cetera, were all from Rancho Mirage. These were people who were really involved in the community in general, and also in the arts here in the community. So I got to know them quite well. Then later on, when I ran for mayor of Palm Springs, after having been on the Measure J Commission for 3 years, I got to really know the city of Rancho Mirage because I was at CVAG meetings all the time, and at League of California City meetings, and at Convention and Visitor Bureau meetings. And I was always very impressed with the council members from Rancho Mirage. And Councilmember Kite, you talked about teamwork, and I always noticed this when I would go to events, if they were a luncheon for one of these groups that all the cities were at, the Rancho Mirage council members would be sitting together. And they actually seemed like they were enjoying each other and were having a good time together. And when I watch you work as a council, I see you respect each other and you communicate well. And you don't always agree, but you certainly communicate and respect and work together well with each other. And that's always been very impressive to me. But when we decided a couple of years ago, we wanted, after I finished my time as mayor of Palm Springs, which I did not run again because we went to districts, and I'd been generally elected by the entire city, and I didn't really want to go into that district situation. Besides, we had been talking for a long time. My husband particularly had been saying, why don't we look at Rancho Mirage? So we started looking, and we really liked it out here, and we happened to find a house that we loved. We walked in, and we said, this is our forever house, and we moved here. And this was one of my great first impressions. We had a problem when we were trying to close because there was a conflict on the property line between our house and the property next to it. And I called the Planning Commission number. I thought it was the middle of the pandemic, and most places were closed down. But I called at 8 o'clock. I called the city, and actually somebody answered the phone in the building department. And not only did they answer the phone, but they actually listened to me. They found out what my issue was. They went to some other people. They came back to us. And they had to work really hard to resolve this because there had been a lot adjustment done 20 years ago that was never properly recorded. And they had to do some real research and find this. And we got it straightened out. If they hadn't been able to do that for me, we couldn't have bought our house because there was just too much conflict over this. And it was a very complex issue, and it got settled. So that made me see how squared away the city is. And then once we moved here, I like to walk in the mornings. This morning I did 2.5 miles, and even in the rain. And the thing I noticed here that was different when I would walk in my neighborhood in Tamarisk, not in the country club, but in the Tamarisk neighborhood, when I would see people walking, I'd say good morning, or they would look at me and say good morning. That didn't happen in Palm Springs. because we lived in the Vista Las Palmas neighborhood, and virtually our entire neighborhood had become vacation rentals. And the people in the houses around us, we were the last 3 houses in 2 blocks that were lived in by the owners. When people and all the people from Los Angeles and Seattle, I'm sure they're all fine people, but they wouldn't even make eye contact. They wouldn't even look at me. But here, every morning, this morning, 4 or 5 people walk by, people on bikes, they wave and they say, hi, good morning. And it's just a friendly town. So our experience being here for the last over a year and a half has just been tremendous. And it would be an incredible honor for me to actually carry on, as well as I could, the great work of my longtime friend and someone I admired and who was my mentor when I was mayor. There were Dana and I used to have lunch fairly often, always at the same table in the same restaurant. And there was many times when I had an issue or a problem or a concern, and I would call Dana, and he said, let's have lunch, and he would help me through those, because I was new at this, and he had been doing it for a very long time. I remember once in particular when I had a very serious problem, and he spent the entire day researching it for me, and then we got together, and he really helped me through it. So it would be an honor for me to fill out the last 10 or 11 months of his tenure.
Thank you, Rob. Questions?
Not for me. Thank you.
Richard?
Robert, you've done such a great job in Palm Springs. If we could only have half that kind of job from the new city councilman. As you look at the cities and the differences in the cities, how do you view the difference between Rancho Mirage and Palm Springs?
Well, you will never hear a word from me ever saying anything ugly about Palm Springs. I loved Palm Springs. I loved living there for 20 years. But Palm Springs is really oriented towards the tourist industry. Everything we did was really about tourism, tourism, tourism. And the residents were very important, of course. We had the organization of neighborhoods. In fact, I was the president of my neighborhood organization for 7 years before I was mayor. And it's very active in the neighborhoods, but still the city was really focused on tourism. Everything I've seen in Palm Springs, including your general plan from 2017, focuses on neighborhoods and neighbors and being a friendly city. So to me, that's the thing that's really important, particularly at this part in my life when I'm in my 3rd retirement and looking to go back to work.
Thank you.
Rob, let me ask you a question. When you were on the Palm Springs Council, and I know I attended CVAG meetings with you, if your position when you were in Palm Springs as it relates to the CV link, what would be your position now as opposed to what it was when you were in Palm Springs? I.e., if you were on this council and the CV link was again brought forward, could you reflect upon your feelings then and possibly now?
Well, the residents of Palm Springs, 80% of the residents of Palm Springs voted not to have the CV link pass through Palm Springs. And Dana, who's probably one of the most brilliant people I've ever known, I mean, I'd sit next to him at CVAG meetings, and he'd have things highlighted in 4 different colors, and he had tiny little notes written in the margins, and he'd have tabs all over the place. He had a very good argument for this. I mean, just interfering with the Abrams Trail and interfering with our parks and also our country clubs. And he tried to come up with a compromise, something around a Ramon Road, but he was really arguing against going through the business district on 111 and going into these country club areas, et cetera. And there was really no compromise. And I can see his point, because there was no compromise. In Palm Springs has more than half of the CV link in it. And there's 2 branches, one that sort of goes south along Tamarask Creek, et cetera, and that was well planned out, and I think it was fine. But there was another branch that went from Messina that went north, and it curved around the Four Seasons neighborhood. And they didn't want it. They didn't want it there. They really fought against it. And it went nowhere. It was the road to nowhere. It ended at the 101 over a mile from the visitor center. But they said, oh, one day we're going to build a bridge across the 101, this beautiful glass bridge someday. And, we all know how that works. But it was really wanted to know where. So I said, this makes no sense whatsoever. The people don't want this branch, 6.2 miles. They don't want this. And it's not practical. It goes nowhere. And they said, well, it takes people to the tram. Well, I used to walk the tram road quite a bit. You ever see anybody ride a bicycle up that tram road? It just doesn't happen. I mean, nobody's going to ride a bike up the tram. So I argue that. And I also argue that the people in Desert Hot Springs wanted the CV link, and that was on a future period. But I pointed out the fact that the distance between Ascena and when it needed to go to Desert Hot Springs was the same distance of this stretch in Palm Springs that was useless and nobody wanted. And I said, why don't you look at just reprogramming this money and go to Desert Hot Springs? No discussion. I mean, I actually we had a presentation on the night we voted on it, and I had done a counter presentation. Actually, when I had the staff bring it up, I thought two of our council members were going to throw me off the dais because they did not even want to hear any opposition to this. And of course, the CVAG people were all in the audience. And I argued to try to compromise here. There was no compromise acceptable. And so I understood where Dana was coming from. When he tried to get a compromise to go where it would not interfere with these things that were important to him, and he felt the people in Rancho Mirage, they wouldn't compromise. So I fully understand, as I said when it started, 80% of the people in Rancho Mirage have voted in an election. They do not want it. So as far as I'm considered, case closed.
Very good, Robert. One of the things that Dana did with that presentation with CV Link, he worked on it diligently, and I mean like 24/7. And we did turn it into a vote from the public. Did you ever think of doing that in Palm Springs, or was that something that could never have been done?
That was a non-starter. I mean, I was leery of it, but there was, it takes 3 people to do anything on a city council. And there was no way we were going to get 3 people. Besides, as far as, what's good for Palm Springs is not necessarily good for Rancho Mirage. Vacation rentals were fine in Palm Springs. There was over 2,000 of them when we started looking at it. And it was just too late. The horse was out of the barn and over the hill. In Rancho Mirage, not so. As I said, Palm Springs is tourist focused as well as resident. But Rancho Mirage is residence focused. So that's not good for them. But what was good for Palm Springs was not necessarily good for Rancho Mirage. So parts of that CV Link in Palm Springs were very good. But as I pointed out, my big argument on that was I tried to compromise on a part of it that I felt wasn't practical and put it where it would be practical. And there was no compromise. There was even no discussion of it.
Very good. Let me ask you one more question. The Desert Sun, you're on the editorial board. How long have you been on it? And why did you go on it? And how did you go on it?
They asked me to. I think I'd always been very active in the community. And also, as you guys know, if you're approached by the press, whether it's television, radio, or the newspaper, you need to be responsive. And so when reporters would call me, I would answer the phone, or if I couldn't, I would call them back. And I would give them the best answer I could that was honest and as much as I could tell them. And so they knew I was responsive. And so I think they knew. And I had been very active in the city of Palm Springs as far as the Measure J Commission. When it was first founded, I was the first chairman. And then on the Palm Springs City Council. And I was also very active in a number of other things. So I felt they thought I had some experience in the Valley.
Yes,
and also I'm a fairly good writer, so, But I must point out, the editorial board is a group, like any group. Like when you go into closed session and you have discussion on things, you might not all agree, but and you get people to compromise. But when you come out, you're in agreement. This is what we feel we should do. Same way with the editorial board. On some editorials, some of us, 1 or 2, may not agree with it. We can influence a little bit, but just because something's in the editorials doesn't mean every single person on that editorial board was fully in favor of it. That was a little bit of a disclaimer.
Okay. Okay, I just have one question. Because of all of your experience and your retirement from the mayor's position in Palm Springs, as well as your military position, and all the years of working in different cities, Is there anything you would change in Rancho Mirage?
Yeah, I heard you ask that question a while ago, and I thought about it. And I really couldn't think of anything. I mean, since we've moved here, I mean, like I said, the friendliness of the people, the efficiency of the city, I mean, the way that the lights are synchronized, you even have a smoother surface on your roads going through Rancho Mirage than the other cities do, the way the city council works together, and the efficiency of your staff, as I experienced when I first met here. And I'm on the foundation board at the Library Observatory, and that the services you give your people, the residents who live here, are just world class. And you do this as a relatively small city, 18,500 people compared to Palm Springs, which is 28,500. So I really can't think of anything significant that I would change.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you. It was my honor and my privilege.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, our next technology drawing. Well,
good afternoon, Mayor and City Council, City Attorney, City Manager, and Ms. Ramos. Congratulations on this fabulous response to apply for Councilmember Hobart's position. It's so pleasing to see this vast knowledge, institutional expertise, and most importantly, every single one of these individuals have been contributing to public service in one capacity or another. So I'm very humbled and honored to be here today. Public service is necessary. Public service is contagious. And it comes from one place, and it comes from a place of contribution. I've been a resident of Rancho Mirage for 30 years. And as a resident, I've been the beneficiary of some very measured and thoughtful decisions of the city councils of the past and the current city council. And quality of life has always been a priority of city councils here in Rancho Mirage, and this is why it's the community that it is. My past experience, I was in municipal government for 18 years, retiring from the city of Cathedral City in 2012. I began my career in public service with the police department, then the fire department, moved on to redevelopment agency as they were building their downtown. I handled public relations, marketing. In Cathedral City, if you don't do 5 jobs at one time, it's not a complete job description. So it was a great opportunity, and I enjoyed my 18 years there. After I retired, and that was as a result of the redevelopment agency closing back in 2012, I decided, coming on to another act, what could I do? And I decided to go into real estate. I'm with Keller Williams, currently with the Brady Sandall Real Estate Group, and I have the pleasure of working with the likes of Jerry and Steve Downs, often viewing their properties. And not only are they wonderful contributors to the community, but they're industry leaders here in Rancho Mirage and represent the city well. But it was during my time separated from Cathedral City that I decided I really miss being in public life in some capacity or another. So, of course, then I became a commissioner with the Speaker Series, and I've served 2 terms, thoroughly enjoying the talent that has come to those commissions and having the opportunity to present specialized speakers to our community. But I also sit as a Board of Trustee member with the Palm Springs Cemetery District, currently serving as the treasurer. And my feeling is that there's room to give for more into this community that has given back and given to me on these 18 years that I've lived here. This time around and the 12 years prior before I moved to Cathedral City to work for the city. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Lynn.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, because have been so involved in so many things. It's very impressive to watch how you have participated in our city. But you are a crime prevention specialist.
Yes.
And you work with the fire department, the police departments, and a variety of other groups. So how would you improve whatever trust we may need to improve on in Rancho Mirage with the community, with the law enforcement, if improvement is needed?
My experience with the Sheriff's Department has been nothing but a positive one. However, there's always room for growth, and it's a constant public interface. Through one-on-one community meetings, if a neighborhood is having an issue, it always helps to assess what the problem is, work with your Sheriff's Department or your fire department. Say if it's a crime issue, identify what the issues are. Find out what the Sheriff's Department is doing first before you have that public interface. And that way, because those are the questions that the public is going to ask. What are you doing? And the ever-present comment, I pay my tax dollars. Tell me what my tax dollars are giving me in a community. Well, our Sheriff's Department does quite a bit. And they respond quickly, swiftly, and they're very proactive. Our fire department does the same. And then we also have community groups, such as the one that Marcia Stein is involved with emergency preparedness. The citizens have to become involved. Cities have changed over the course of the last 50, 75 years, where everything was headed or by a department head or a committee that was city-sponsored, city staff, city employed. It has become a citizen-based environment and community. And we find that when the citizens are involved, there is a greater degree of involvement, participation, and preparedness.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Lynn?
Yes.
I have a question, but it's just between you and me. No one else is going to know what you're going to say or what I'm going to ask you.
Oh, dear.
You are out and about for many, many years. And I'm curious, what do you hear about the reputation that the city of Rancho Mirage has in a whole with the 8 other cities? In other words, are we cooperative? Do we work together? And most of all, what do they think of the way the city is run? Now remember, just you and me.
I'll just keep that on the hush hush. Well, it's actually one of the best things that I can chat about when I'm looking and interacting with a prospective buyer that wants to come to the desert and they have a special interest about Rancho Mirage. You're fiscally sound. You're responsive to the public. You're very proactive. And you assess the needs of what the public needs. You're open, you listen, you collaborate. I think one of the greatest assets this council has, and councils in the past, is collaboration. You work as a team. And it's not just team up on the dais, it's team with the city manager, team with the staff, because they're really behind the curtain. They're the ones that make the wheels turn. You're the legislative end of it, and staff follows. But when the public has the opportunity to intervene and interact with the staff, it's a welcome, and it's a welcome surprise in today's world when everyone is short on time, short on communication, and short on staff. The staff is always there for its community.
Yeah, I think that Dana Hobart in his retirement speech said it's not only the staff, but the staff plus 5, referring to the council. And let me tell you now, you can tell that answer now to anybody you want. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard?
Lynn, thanks for being here today and going through this process. It's really important to the city of Rancho Mirage to involve as many people as we can and come out with the best results. I asked a question a little bit earlier in the presentation about if there was one thing in Rancho Mirage you could change, what would it be and why?
I think if there's one thing that could change, it would be for the positive and continue to expand on your public interface with your residents. Your residents want to be involved. They want to continue to grow this beautiful community. They cherish the quality of life that they have. I wouldn't change anything. I would just enhance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. We're getting down to the bottom of the fishbowl. Alan Helfman.
So this might have to be extempore, but I was under the impression that this was going to begin with a question from the mayor and a 5-minute answer. Is that still a possibility?
Sure.
I'm ready.
The question basically will be, Alan, is what is your motivation for running for this particular position, and what do you see would be your contribution to the city of Rancho Mirage?
So I'm relatively new to Rancho Mirage. It's 3 years. When I moved from Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, the Arts District, and talked to some friends about coming out to the desert, I know that this council is proud of 92270, but in terms of what I was warned about, whatever you do, don't move to Rancho Mirage. I mean, that was the word. And I looked at many houses in many cities, and finally I found a house that I liked, and it was in Rancho Mirage. And I thought, I'm just gonna move into this house. And if I don't like anybody, I won't talk to anybody. And if I do like them, then maybe I'll talk to them, but I like the house. And I found out that it was really a bad rap that you guys were getting. People didn't understand Rancho Mirage in Los Angeles, particularly in the Arts District. They didn't understand the politics, and they really didn't understand who lived here. And so I'll tell a fast story. It's not exactly a Rancho Mirage story, but it's right nearby. I'm a jazz fan, and I was touted to pay attention to a guy named Bill Marks, that probably most of you know, jazz guy. He plays somewhere, and you guys should see if you can find him and listen to him. And so I kind of said, I'll get to it, and one day. And finally, I looked him up and found out that he was playing almost around the corner from me, but not in Rancho Mirage, in Cathedral City. And it was a place called the Date Palm Country Club. Yeah. Sounded like a country club to me, and it is a kind of country club. And there was Bill Marks. I had Googled him. I knew a little bit about him. And I got in the car one Friday night. I knew he played on Monday nights, but it was a Friday night. I had nothing to do. I thought, I'm going to check out this Date Palm Country Club. And being a New Yorker with more attitude than most people, I drive into this Date Palm Country Club, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, like, this is kind of a double-wide trailer park country club, and I'm from Manhattan. I mean, this is not. And maybe I made a mistake. This doesn't. But I kept driving, and I just kept driving. There was something that just kind of lured me to this place, and I get into the place, and I look around. It was at that time it had a different name. It's going to have a new name soon. I look around, and everybody looked like me, or worse. And I kept thinking, like, this is really a big mistake. But I ordered a drink, and I became friendly with the waitress, and curious about the place. And there was a trio playing, and they looked like me or worse. But I know jazz, and I'm listening, and I'm thinking, these guys know how to play jazz, and this is really some pretty good music. But I was still confused about all of these people who were sitting in this room. And then all of a sudden, the waitress comes over. She said, that's Bill Marks. It's not his night, but he just walked in. And he came in, sat down, and then he played a couple of tunes he was called up to and I thought, this guy can play piano. And then the evening went on, and all of these people who looked like me or worse, They were all spectacular, some retired, some active jazz musicians, singers, saxophone players. And it was just an eye-opener in terms of where I am and who's around me. And over the years, now it's 3 years, I'm just always pleasantly surprised, and even more than that, in terms of just what spectacular people, live in Rancho Mirage. It's just a big surprise, with incredible backgrounds that come from law and from music and from medicine, and they're all over the place. And people really don't quite know that they exist. And they're looking for some things to do. Some of them really are very, very happy with golf carts and golf, and that's the life that they lead. But a lot of them are still kind of a little edgy, kind of retired, semi-retired, and looking for things. And I thought it would be nice if there were a mentoring project, that would be part of Rancho Mirage. And there's money for that, to train mentors, and there certainly are young people and older people who could, take advantage of the wisdom and the experiences that so many of the people here have. And so that was kind of my first thought in terms of why I might be interested in Rancho Mirage. And that segues into the whole concept of workforce. When I look at the committees that exist in Rancho Mirage, there are two that seem to be significantly absent, and that's education and workforce. And I come from education and workforce in terms of Los Angeles. That's what I did. I served on the Workforce Investment Board. I understand what workforce means in terms of the value to a city, the value to investors. When people think about putting money into a place, one of the first questions they ask is, who am I going to hire? Where am I going to get them? Are they well trained? Are you willing to train them for me? And so the whole concept of workforce is a really important part of thinking. The mentoring is part of that, but as well as developing a workforce that becomes attractive and becomes part of the brand, that the 92270 has a workforce that's worth talking about. The other piece is the education piece. In terms of other cities that I've worked with, and by the way, I had a job that would be really strange for some of you. If you can think of yourselves as a city council of one particular city, I was the director of external affairs in Los Angeles Unified School District. There are 25 cities that are part of that particular school district, and my job was to keep them all happy, to make sure that they got what they wanted and they knew what we were doing. And that's really like herding cats is an understatement in terms of working with 20 different city councils and mayors and trying to keep this whole thing going. And the city manager is smiling about that. And the education piece, I think, is a piece that's missing. I know that Rancho Mirage works and donates and helps Palm Springs Unified and College of the Desert. Those are the two main districts that you're involved with. But I think that there could be a more active role in terms of participating in the education programs. What are your needs going into the future in terms of, are the kids being trained the way you see this city in terms of the vision for the future? Do they have, are they involved in technical skills, GPS technology, health informatics? Are the school districts really kind of working with you in terms of the vision that you have and training people for the future? And I think that Rancho Mirage could have a more active role in terms of not simply watching and sometimes applauding, but actually getting involved in some way and linking with the roles of both Palm Springs Unified and College of the Desert.
Alan, that's great. If I may, I'd like to segue into any questions that the council may have of you.
I have a question, and welcome here.
Thank you.
It's nice hearing all about what you've been doing, and I know you're very involved with the Children's Museum here. And you talk about in your application about developing the STEM program. And you also state that the Children's Museum is underdeveloped, underfunded, lacks narrative focus and accountability. So maybe you can elaborate on some of the areas where you would focus and how improvements can be made. One of the big issues, of course, is funding, which is imperative in any kind of programming. And I don't know if you've ever been involved with fundraising, but that's a big aspect now of our Children's Museum. And how would you direct whatever fundraising and the ability to bring in funds to secure programs that you have in mind?
I think, first of all, I have been involved in fundraising. It's not something that I want to continue doing. But nonetheless, I have some experience with both fundraising and leveraging resources. And those are possibilities in terms of trying to figure out a business plan and a fiscally responsible museum. But when you deal with fundraising and you deal with development, you really have to have a story to tell. And if you start with fundraising as the story, you're making a very big mistake. And right now, as far as I can tell, the museum does not have a story to tell in terms of what they are, what they're trying to accomplish. What do you want if a kid goes there and a kid leaves? What is that kid supposed to think and feel and think about the future in terms of that? And I don't get that feeling from the word discovery. That's just a big word. And it would be nice if there were a more narrow focus in terms of what the kids are going to accomplish when they go there, and what might they do in terms of assignments when they leave, and what might they do when they come back again. I don't think that the program is yet worthy of going out and asking people to write checks. So I think that work has to be done. And when I read the copy, for the museum, which is nice, I mean, I'm glad that there's a new director, and I'm glad that there's an attempt to, approach this from a development standpoint. I think that one thing I learned when I dealt with bond oversight in Los Angeles is instruction is the guide to construction. It doesn't start with construction that leads to instruction. And that's the same thing with the museum. I mean, we have to figure out what the kids want, what the teachers want, what the families want, and kind of narrow in on that so that there's really a good story to tell. And then you can take that story out to the public and show them what the benefits would be when you're asking people to write checks. So if that helps,
absolutely.
I would start with the kids. I mean, I would just start with the kids.
Okay, thank you.
Charlie?
Oh, good, thank you.
Richard?
Good conversation and a good view on the Children's Discovery Museum.
Thank you.
Very well done.
Yes, the question tonight for you is why Rancho Mirage and your, as you see, involvement in the future?
So that's a good lead segue, and I'm going to take it and try to go with it a little bit. One of the things that I talked about is the future, because it's sitting right in front of us, it's banging us on the head, and I'm not sure that we're really dealing with it. I have to deal with it in terms of the work that I do with community college districts and Indian tribes and some other school districts. But it really is a word that I think I coined, I hope I coined it doesn't matter, but the word that I use is virtualism, is that we are now going into a new arena, a new era of the virtual. Coming out of the pandemic, some of it goes away and some of it stays. And those entities that can embrace virtualism and figure out how it fits with what they're doing going into the future are probably the ones that are going to do well in the future. And those that really say, we're over it, it didn't work, they're the ones that are going to go by the wayside. So I come back to workforce in terms of positioning, in terms of Rancho Mirage looking into the future. There's going to be a gigantic world of work that's really going to be at home. There are so many people now who are working from home, who really want homes that kind of are ready to approach this virtual workforce that's going to take place. And I think one of the cities, Carlsbad, there are some other cities that are beginning to position themselves as a progressive city involving workforce and the virtual impact of what life is going to look like. And I don't come with this with any expertise. I'm not a futurist, but I'm clear that some of this is going to stay, and those who embrace it are going to do better than those who don't. And that's a marketing research, exercise. It's focus groups. It's talking to people of what do you think your new home is going to look like? What do you want your kids to do in terms of virtual and hybrid education? There's a whole discussion that has to be developed, and I would hope that Rancho Mirage begins to embrace that opportunity.
Thank you.
Alan, thanks very much. I have the opportunity to chat with Alan quite a bit from time to time, and he's very enlightening, and I appreciate the fact that you've shown interest in pursuing this position the same as the other people here. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you all. Yep.
The last one.
Possibly so. Peter Samuels.
Okay.
He's very intelligent.
Yeah.
Very intelligent. Really intelligent.
Why isn't he a good friend?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Peter Albert Samuels. I'm originally from San Francisco. My wife, Rhoda, and I have been coming to the desert since 1969, and we have been residents of Rancho Mirage permanently since 2008. My resume pretty much speaks as to who I am. The main thing is that I've been schooled, and I believe in giving back. I have been president of many organizations in the Bay Area. Most of them were Jewish organizations, from presidents of synagogues to day schools to Hever Kadishas. I was on the board of a private high school. I was on the grand jury, and I was on a 7-step foundation, which you may or may not know of. Since coming to Rancho Mirage, I was involved briefly on the Housing Commission and on the Library Foundation Board. I was also on the board of Tamrisk Country Club and on the HOA board at the Springs. And that's me. I'm a proud father of 2 and grandfather of 4. How can I help you?
Peter, where do you see Rancho Mirage as to any areas in which the city can be improved?
Honestly, I think it can, as one of the other candidates said, I think it can be enhanced. I don't think it can be improved. One of the things that I'd like to tell you, some of you know, my best friend here was a fellow named Al Rosen. You may or may not know who he was. Al used to say that there's no I in the word team. I believe that. I am a team player, but don't mistake that. I'll state my case. So I don't think that there's anything I can improve on. I do believe there's things that we can enhance.
Any other questions?
Yes, Peter, welcome here. Thank you
Hi.
for coming. Welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I know you've had lots of experience with everything in life, and you've served on Rancho Mirage committees, and we've been honored to have you. But tell us where you see Rancho Mirage in 10 years from now.
Iris, I'm sorry, I can't hear very well.
Tell us where you see Rancho Mirage in 10 years from now.
I hope I'm alive.
As far as growth, as hopefully we'll all be alive. But even if you're not, and even if some of us are missing in action.
I would say 5 years.
In 5 years,
Bring it down
okay.
to 5.
Okay, 3.5 years, okay.
I interrupted part of that. So how I see Rancho Mirage in 5 years or 10 years?
Yes.
Well, it's going to grow. It has to grow. Quite honestly, I think Rancho Mirage has extended my life and my wife's life. It is a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful place. There's so many things here that we can take advantage of, and I hope that most people can do that. I just think it's a marvelous community. I think that it's run well. I think one of the nicest ingredients of Rancho Mirage, of you people, are your staff. The staff is the most important thing here. We learn from them. They help us. They guide us. We make the decisions. Pardon me, you make the decisions, but you're guided by what they tell you, and they're top-notch, and I know. When I was on the Landmarks Preservation Board in San Francisco, the staff guided us and guided us well. The same with the grand jury. So keep them healthy.
Let me ask you this question. As you see the growth of Rancho Mirage in those next 5 years or 10 years, do you feel that we are growing and picking the right developments, the right direction for what Rancho Mirage is now, and will even be more enhanced in those next 5 years to 10 years in the direction that we go with build out?
I think you're doing a terrific job. I do believe that some of the projects that you're doing will definitely enhance Rancho Mirage. It'll bring new revenue, which is vitally important. It'll bring more people here who will get more involved. One of the great things about this city is you have committees, and the committees are the contributors to what goes on here. And they're wonderful, and that's where you get future board members, where you get future leaders. So yes, I think that the future growth of Rancho Mirage is good. It's wonderful.
Good.
I hope I'm around in 5 years and 10 years.
We hope you are too.
Richard?
Peter, it's good to have you here today. To
Thank you, Richard.
Listen to your input. And I guess my question is, you've done it all, you've done it well. Why do you want to be part of the Rancho Mirage City Council?
As I said originally, Richard, I believe in giving back. This is the only way I can give back to my community, to get more involved and to help. There are people out there who would probably do a better job, and that's wonderful. I'm here now, I want to serve now, and I believe I can make a difference. And I am a team player, Richard, even though sometimes I haven't been in some of your eyes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Peter, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Mayor. All the best. Happy holidays, everybody.
And to you.
To you too.
We have gone through the names. Did Elizabeth Chavez or Brad Anderson arrive? All right. They did not show up today. So let me say this. In concluding the meeting today, first of all, I want to thank everyone here for coming and participating. And as a number of you have expressed, it's very rewarding to see the indication of interest and care that so many of you have to serve on the council, and to give something to what I consider an exceptional city. On Thursday of this week, we will have the regular city council meeting. And at that time, we will ask for nominations from those people that have been interviewed. And presumably, based upon the nomination, we will have an election to fill the seat vacated by Dana Hobart. And that will be on Thursday, and the meeting will begin at 1 o'clock. So again, this time and this meeting is concluded. Unless, do you have something you want to say, Iris?
I do. I just have a couple of words because this is going to be a very difficult decision. I've never seen such a wonderful selection of applicants for any job. You're all very accomplished, you're all dedicated to doing good, and you all have incredible people skills, you're devoted to our community, and you're all devoted to giving back. So I thank all of you for being here, and I'm so glad that you had an opportunity to hear all the other applicants and the work they have done and the contributions they have made to life and that they would like to make to Rancho Mirage. But I particularly want to thank all of our veterans who are here today. You have done for our country what we have. There are no words to say thank you enough. And we are indebted to you, and we thank you so much for your service and for now wanting to serve Rancho Mirage. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Ditto off of what Iris, what you just said, but I literally am in awe of all of you to have such vision of Rancho Mirage, what it is today, is most rewarding and filling to my heart to see that you see what this council has done in the last many, many years to bring the vision of Rancho Mirage that you all say you want to see and you want to continue. To me, that is very heartwarming and gives a lot of credibility to the residents who really pay attention to what goes on in Rancho Mirage, and to this council for the last many, many years that I have been on, and the staff that directs and helps and gives us guidance and vision, to all of the commissions that you all serve on, for those of you who have. And I certainly do say to all of you who are not on any commission or getting involved, please do that for yourselves to give back to Rancho Mirage. And as far as the Children's Discovery Museum, I think that there's a great opportunity for people to get involved with the Children's Discovery Museum and try to bring that back into the fold and make it to a great, great institution for the young people who are coming in. And it's not just Rancho Mirage for that project, it's for the whole Coachella Valley. That's what it was built for. And so I certainly wish all of you well. I am very proud to be a part of a community with citizens and neighbors like you. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Richard, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Nothing more to say other than Team Rancho Mirage is number one.
And again, it's very rewarding to hear the comments, and particularly the fact that the majority of the people here have all expressed the fact that our city is certainly going in the right direction, and that our interest is the quality of life for our residents. And that's the thing that we pride ourselves on in the decision-making process, is what is best for the majority of our residents in all cases. We're not going to get everybody to agree with every decision that we make, but we hope that the majority will agree with us, because that is what predicates us in making the decisions that we do. So we're very proud and we're pleased. And again, we thank you for being here today. And as I say, on Thursday, we will have the challenge and the task of nominating somebody for, as you all have expressed, a seat that will be almost virtually impossible to fill based upon the incredible contributions that Dana Hobart has made over the years. On the other hand, we thank you for participating and look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Thank you.